Hey there, bibliophiles and those raising bibliophiles. Without ratings and warning labels, knowing which books are appropriate for your children to read is like navigating wild terrain without a map and a compass. I don't know about you, but I have been burned more than once handing my child a book that I thought was clean and appropriate for them to read. I'm a fellow mom, educator, reading specialist, and literary enthusiast trying to find great books for my children and yours to read. So if you're looking for a real review from a mom with a biblical worldview, then welcome and enjoy this week's book review. So this week's book review is War Games, a novel of 1936 Berlin by Alan Gratz, and this is his newest historical fiction. The novel centers around the main character Evelyn Harris, who is a gymnast competing in the 1936 Olympics. The story is going to open with Evelyn and the rest of the American team on a ship on their way to Germany. Evelyn is an outcast sort of amongst the gymnasts because she's sort of bumped off one of their friends and her acceptance to the team due to her performance in the trials. Evelyn feels pretty alone and desperate. She's also determined to win the gold in the Olympics. In her mind, her family's survival depends on it, and she doesn't want to let down all the people that really helped her get to this moment. Not entirely alone, Evelyn does have a friend and a roommate, Mary Brooks, who's a famous actress and equestrian, who befriends her on the trip to Europe. However, Evelyn does receive a mysterious note for her to meet someone after the opening ceremony of the Olympics. The note promises to help Evelyn take gold, and desperate to leave nothing to chance, she does meet this mysterious person or persons behind the note. Before I go any further, I'm going to read just a little bit of the opening just to give you an idea of the writing style and how the story opens. It starts, the chapter is titled Tell No One. Trumpets blared, bells rang out. Beyond the mouth of the dark tunnel, 100,000 voices roared. I took a deep breath as the team from Turkey marched out ahead of us, and we moved up to take their place. The U.S. team had waited a long time for our big moment. We were about to walk into the Parade of Nations at the opening ceremony of the 1936 Olympics. Alphabetically, we were third from last among the 49 countries here to compete in Berlin. I looked around at my fellow U.S. athletes, swimmers, boxers, wrestlers, field hockey players, pentathletes. More than 300 of us stood ready to enter the Olympia Stadium, the outdoor arena that would be the main sports venue for the next 16 days. I hung out near the other athletes on the U.S. women's gymnastics team. I'm getting chills, I said. Anybody else getting chills? The 7 other gymnasts were huddled together, buzzing with energy. The girl closest to me nodded, then turned her back on me again. My lips thinned. My teammates had all trained at the same East Coast gym. I was the lone outsider, all the way from California. Worse, I had beaten out one of their friends to make the team. Ever since then, they had given me the cold shoulder. Fine, I thought. I'm here to win gold. I don't need friends for that. Am I late? Mary Brooks asked, swaying in like she was showing up to a fancy party. She took my arm and I smiled despite myself. I didn't need friends, but I'd made one on the ship to Germany without even trying. Fashionably late as always, I said. We're about to walk out. Then I'm right on time, Mary said. Not going to stand with the rest of the equestrian team, I asked. Those sticks in the mud, Mary said. Mary Brooks, my gymnastics teammates cried. They crowded around her, shining their attention on their way. They had never with me. I couldn't begrudge them too much. Mary Brooks was an Olympian athlete and a Hollywood movie star, a real one. After she'd won an equestrian gold medal at 16, Mary and her horse Abyssinian had starred in half a dozen Hollywood westerns. I'd seen her last picture, Moonlight on the Prairie, in a theater back home. Now she was my best friend and roommate on the U.S. team. I still couldn't believe it. It sure was nice to have a little good luck for a change. Isn't this thrilling, Miss Brooks? One of the gymnasts asked. It must be like walking the red carpet, said another. Mary smiled and nodded, then turned her back on the girls. I saw their faces drop as she led me away. A little taste of their own medicine, Mary whispered. I see how they treat you, Evie. Your teammates need to learn that looking out for other people gets you much further in life than looking out for yourself. So I'm going to sort of stop there, but that gives you a little idea of the intro to the story and the characters. So Evelyn does decide to meet who is behind the mysterious note, and walking along in Berlin may not be the wisest thing for her to do, but in order to meet this mystery person, she has to also shake off Heinz, who is her youth service host. Once she has succeeded in doing so, she meets someone named Solomon Monday and Karl Huberein. I'm sure I'm butchering that name. Karl is a German weightlifter competing in the Olympics himself, but prior to his current commitments, he worked construction and building a fortified German bank. Monday is the so-called leader of this operation, and their plan is to rob the bank during the Olympics with Evelyn's help, as well as help from a Black French diver named Ursula. Evelyn cannot believe the proposition that they've given her, and trying to figure out why she was chosen. Monday, though, has done his research, and he knows that Evelyn has a tough situation at home. She's homeless, parents are struggling, jobless, and she also has the recent death of her young brother. Evelyn's family has faced a series of traumatic events due to the Great Depression and the Dust Bowl in America. They were affected by both of those. While Evelyn at first refuses, she does change her mind when she doesn't make the competition team and comes in 5th place for the gymnasts. She instead is the first alternate. With time now on her hands, she does reach out to Carl, and the heist is pretty much back on. With limited time, Evelyn is quickly consumed with all the things that need to happen within 4 or 5 days for their heist to be successful. Readers are going to encounter a lot of twists and turns and revelations in this part of the book. For one, Heinz is actually a Jewish young man that is mistaken as Aryan due to his appearance. He's essentially hiding in plain sight. If all of this wasn't enough, Evelyn ends up getting called in to perform for the team in the Olympics when one of the original 4 gets injured. All is going well, but right before her big performance, she begins to question and worry. Monday has given her an ultimatum, and she's unsure of how true he is to his word. He threatens to expose her, Carl, Ursula, and Heinz to the Nazis because he feels the heist and plan has been threatened. Unfortunately, Evelyn fails in her performance due to a fall, and the U.S. comes in 5th place. Dejected, she refuses to let every chance pass her by, and during a final Nazi rally held at the Olympic Stadium, she rallies the members of the team, plus Brooks and Heinz, to pull off the heist of a lifetime. Fast forwarding just a bit to the end for parents, the gold they think they're going to find in the vault is actually all the gold and jewels that the Germans have taken from the Jews that they've relocated. They plan to steal the wealth and the gold bars with the German insignia in order to use it to help the Jewish people and the resistance. In the end, Monday does double cross them in a sense, but they kind of expected that. So there is a big twist for readers at the end, and they had an alternate plan that allowed them to maintain some of the goods themselves. Evelyn ends up giving her part of the treasure to Heinz to help his family and others escape Germany. And this is ultimately the culmination of Evelyn's internal conflict throughout the book, as she has been hoping for gold one way or the other, and the desire that it would ultimately help her family through this desperate time that they are experiencing. So while all seems like a great story full of twists and turns, and it is honestly to a degree, there is some cautionary material for families who seek reading material that aligns with biblical worldview. So one of these key points of caution is around the character Carl. So Carl is a homosexual, and his boyfriend Paul has been sent to a concentration camp. Carl explains that they used to be able to live their lives in the open, but since then, his boyfriend has been taken away, and the only reason he wasn't was because they needed him to perform in the Olympics to show great things for Germany. So while the Nazis did actually persecute homosexuals and send them to concentration camps, so that's a matter of fact, that is not a point of contention of this book for me. The book does, though, present a message that there isn't anything wrong with this type of relationship, and that it's brought up a few times throughout the story as Evelyn is thinking on this and their relationship. Gratz also has a portion in his author's note to address the persecution of homosexuals by the Nazis. As a person of faith, this is definitely going to be cautionary material, just the way that it's presented, and not presenting it as behavior that doesn't align with Scripture. According to Scripture, it is clearly a sinful relationship, and is not permissible, but the book kind of presents it in a different way. And so I definitely think it's worth mentioning and making that clear to parents. The same way that I'm calling out that type of relationship, I would call out certain affairs if those appeared in books. And I have in other books where things have crossed the line, even in heterosexual relationships. So another point of caution is some of the underlying philosophical conversations between Evelyn and Monday. Given the state of politics and culture today in America, I can't help but recognize some of the undertones in which Gratz might be trying to make a connection or a parallel that supports some of the progressive ideology or ideological beliefs in America today that set up like this dichotomy of an us versus them, a victim versus oppressor mindset. Monday claims at one point that he admires the Nazis for being takers, and that is what he has to also do in order to succeed. He claims that he sees that same mindset in Evelyn. However, as Evelyn gives her portion of the treasure away at the end of the book, it is also represented as she's kind of rejecting Monday's beliefs. If you go to my website at holdingsteadfastreaders.com, you're going to get some more details and information. I do have there's a little bit of profanity. So if you go to my website, holdingsteadfastreaders.com, you're going to get a few more of those details and you'll know specifically what kinds of words I'm talking about. I also pull out particular quotes or things I've mentioned that I think are worthwhile for parents to be aware of. Overall, I mean, there is a little bit of profanity in the book compared to some others, so it's not too terrible. And the premise of the story itself is really compelling and intriguing. But overall, if you're trying to find a book that really aligns with biblical worldview and values, then this is a book that I would probably recommend that you pass on. Ever since Gratz has really published 2 Degrees, I've kind of noticed more progressive messaging and characters presented in his novels, stuff that I didn't see prior to that novel publication. So I just kind of want to make that clear to you and make you aware as parents, because ultimately the point of this is to give you the information to help you decide what is and isn't appropriate for your children to read. And hopefully that this is helpful to you and that you will join me next week for another book review.